Fanzo would say.
You're all clear, kid. Let's blow this thing. All right. So, folks, we're here. This is going to be, am I okay calling this season 2? What do we think?
Yes.
All right, everybody, welcome. This is Web3 by 3. This is our weekly podcast discussing the business angle of Web3. This is specific to the business community. We three, who we'll introduce in a moment, believe that there was not a business-centered discussion around Web3. This is not for the crypto bros. This is not for the get-rich-quick NFT crowd. This is for people who are looking to institute Web3 into their business and to bridge from Web2 to Web3. That's what we're here to help you talk about. So I'm joined today by my lovely co-hosts, Michelle Peterson-Clark, the content marketing queen.
Hello, everyone.
Michelle comes to us from the United Kingdom. And Mike Neubauer.
Currently.
Mike Neubauer, you're ops guy. Michelle will be bringing the content marketing chops. Mike will bring the technology angles. My name is Mark Angelos. I will be bringing the financial/business strategy. So by way of quick background, I am longtime Wall Street. Mike?
Just operations, engineering, any kind of business management.
Michelle?
Content marketing for about 13, 15 years now, and sort of been writing forever.
Great. So we're going to dive right in. What we do generally is we'll run through a quick review of the news, what's going on, what this means for people. And then we're going to have, if there's any Q&A, we'll dig into that and we'll share some opinions. So story number one, for those who aren't aware, in Davos, Switzerland right now, we're having the global get-together. Right now, there's a blockchain hub happening at the World Economic Forum. Blockchain Hub at Davos is a discussion venue for industries, governments, and blockchain leaders to help rebuild global trust. The concept, and I'm reading from the article here, I'm paraphrasing, but the concept is, out of Cointelegraph, they tell us that there are increasingly fewer reasons to trust world leaders and institutions. And so those leaders are looking to reinstate that trust, hence the blockchain discussion. So we'll start off, as always, Michelle, what are your thoughts around the world leadership discussing how blockchain can reinstitute trust?
Well, it's an interesting thing, isn't it? I do think if it wasn't for FTX that they would be talking about trust at this summit. I don't think so. My feeling is that there's been a bit of a pivot with what they were or what they might have been talking about. And I have no doubt that SBF probably would have been invited to come and speak. Because Davos tends to have, the be-all and end-all of everything there. I agree. I think that we do need to work on the level of trust and the types of people and what happens within this space. And yeah, I think it will be interesting to see what comes out of it. The interesting thing is, like, everyone posts about being at Davos, and there's, unless you watch CNBC, I guess you don't really hear very much about it other than a few stories in mainstream news. But I never kind of hear of any revolutionary, groundbreaking things coming out of the people that meet at Davos. So I don't know.
So, Mike, what are your thoughts around this? Davos, Switzerland taking on the blockchain to bring trust.
I think the word trust and World Economic Forum is oxymoronic. This is the most untrustworthy group on the face of the earth. It's a bunch of elitist idiots that get together and pat themselves on the back about what changes they think should be made in the world. They have plans and strategies and things in place that they're trying to maneuver that is going to destroy fabrics of societies and countries. So I don't trust anything that comes out of that group. As it relates to the blockchain, I do think it's one of those useful tools that they would find in an effort to try to control / mitigate some of the information highways that are not speaking the same language as them. And there's obviously good points that will be brought up there. Again, I try to disassociate myself with everything related to that group.
As always, not short on opinion over there, Mike. I do agree with you on something. I'm going to take from Michelle and say that SBF and that whole FTX thing absolutely is a factor as to why they're meeting. I do believe what you're saying also, Mike, that there's, and moronic to take the term, These global institutions that are centralization oriented, the whole concept of centralization flies in the face of the decentralized ethos of Web3. Blockchain enables this. And so how do you stop the blockchain, if that were your intention, would be to meet about it and talk about it. So I think that this gets to the interests of centralization versus decentralization. And that won't get solved at Davos. But I do think there is a co-opting of the ethos of Web3. And we're seeing the traditional finance creeping into the DeFi thing, and they'll use the guise of regulation for that. And maybe that's for the good, right? Maybe FTX was a bad thing that wouldn't have happened had there been rules in place. However, there's also something to be said for the fact that as long as you can't see what's on the books, you don't know. And speaking as a Lehman Brothers survivor from 2008, I kind of believe that I wouldn't trust anyone I can't look at the blockchain about, my opinion.
Yep.
All right. Moving on to the second part of that, the Web3 predictions at the World Economic Forum that they will be discussing. Now, this is specific to Web3. The WEF is going to be making 4 predictions that they want to explore. They have announced that the 4 predictions for what's coming. Number 1, tokenization. For 2023, the Economic Forum expects more tokenization of assets this year. Number 2, regulation of the landscape. Right? They're calling it policy approach, but that is slang for regulation of Web3. The third point is the rise of decentralized social media specifically. And the fourth is expansion of Web3 use cases. They expect to see much more Web3 use cases breaking into the mainstream. So, thoughts on this, Michelle? Tokenization, regulation, decentralization, and use cases.
I think that we've talked a bit before about the rally sort of social token thing. Not that necessarily a large group of people were using that within the space, that sort of platform, but it still has left a bad taste in a lot of people's mouths and people that have heard about it. So from that point of view, I think that the token and how people use tokens and what they're going to be used for is going to go through some changes this year, because essentially businesses who launch themselves and then they raise money via a token and then either do or don't care about the token price and what they do and don't do for it. I mean, that sort of thing, in 2021, 2022 was a big way to raise money and for people to speculate and all of that. And I think that those days are gone now. So unless your token, or if you're creating a token, unless it is going to do something for the person who buys it, I think that we might see a bit of a change in people's thinking about that.
Interesting. So, Mike, what are you thinking about the predictions that the WEF is expecting?
I think Mike's gone.
Oh,
I
there he
can't
is.
see him
A
anymore.
little technical issues here. He's back. So I'll say, I think, Michelle, what's happening with the tokenization is already happening. Like, they're predicting tokenization of more assets. That didn't take much of a brain to figure that one out. Regulation, same thing. In light of what happened with FTX,
yeah.
I mean, this is does anyone not expect regulations? Decentralized social media is interesting. That's been pushed for a little bit now, and there has been a little more friction there than I would have expected. Social media in general, these are very powerful organizations. Technology companies with a lot of money have a lot of power. Now, I'm not conspiratorial when I say that any company would defend its turf. And I think decentralized social, it's not easy enough yet. It's not simple enough to just plug in. And I mean, this is what Elon Musk is going to tackle with Twitter. We'll see where that goes. And finally, the expansion of Web3 use cases. I've been talking about this for about a year as well. There's use cases that are plain as day that people just don't realize are Web3. If you look at what Gary Vaynerchuk is doing in the restaurant space, Dunkin' Donuts, Starbucks, Budweiser, Nike, Disney, who is it? We'll hit this shortly, but Lego, right? There's a growing number of big companies that recognize the marketing angles of this. The problem is that it's always a cash grab. It's a short-term use of a technology that really could enable community building, loyalty, and I'm talking like long-term. You can drive repeat revenue. The most valuable customer to any business is the customer you already have. And Web3 provides an avenue for that. What folks are not grasping, and I mean, I'm talking the business heads in globally, but in America specifically, they're still trying to make a short-term, make the till ring in the recession, and Web3 becomes another avenue to try to monetize while we try to get business back in the door. That's the thought process. That is not going to, in the long term, those companies will lose to the ones who are building a loyal fan base. Mike, did we get you back yet?
Yeah, I'm here. I'm just behind you. So you're I think you're the whole screen here.
Hold on, let me as it should be. Hold on a second. Let me No, we're getting there. We're getting there. There we go.
The tokenization element of it, I mean, look, it doesn't all need to be linked to some sort of financial asset, right? We've said this time and time again. Businesses have the opportunity to create these internal ecosystems and tokenomics, as they call it, within their own communities that live and thrive and can be exchanged accordingly within their own communities. The regulation of the landscape, this is something that we definitely think is going to be on the horizon pretty shortly here, mostly on the exchange side, more so than the token side of things. And I think that, if these exchanges are going to start linking themselves to banks and, there's going to be some sort of a bridge out, there's going to have to be regulation associated with that, just so we don't get a repeat of the FTX, or other ones that are on the horizon. The decentralized social media, I don't think that's anything that's coming anytime soon. I think there's way too much power in centralizing social media. And I don't think anybody's willing to give up those reins just quite yet. And of course, the expansion of the Web3 use cases. I mean, I think we're seeing a lot of these companies starting to use the terminology of Web3 in a Web2 format. And I think that's going to continue until we get, more into a comfortable position in the onboarding phase, a little bit more trust into the overall, decentralized platform, digital wallets, even some of the various cryptos. But I think the expansion of the Web3 will continue to evolve. It won't necessarily be as fast as we've seen it in this past year, but it will continue to expand.
So there's a comment in the chat here on LinkedIn from Brian Piper. Brian, thanks for joining us, by the way. A man who definitely knows what he's talking about, so I value his insights. I think the combination of decentralized social media and tokenized microeconomies will begin to build very strong communities of engaged superfans with matching beliefs and goals. Do we believe that that is what's happening in Web3 so far? Thoughts?
Tokenized microeconomies.
So to me, that sounds like creator coins. Brian, you feel free to jump in and espouse that further. But I feel like tokenized microeconomies, tokens, currency.
Yeah, and it's just nothing more than a reward system, I guess, that encourages engagement. If that's a way to put it, it's a way to support and, back people that, you're interested in supporting. I'm not convinced that that's the way of the future of Web3. I think it's a component of it. And I think just like everything else, it's nothing more than a tool that can assist in the branding efforts of whether it's an influencer, an individual, or a business.
But in those branding efforts, Mike, how are they using it? Brian's talking about building super fans.
Correct. And it will be a specific type of fan. I don't know if it's going to be the nucleus of your targeted audience until the technology is a little bit more accepted. We've all heard you could build a very strong community with 100 super fans, right? Those super fans don't necessarily need to engage in the tokenomics of your side of the business in order to support you. If you treat the tokenomics as a simple component or tangent of that branding effort. Meaning these people could easily support you on the current channels that they're used to, that they're comfortable on, and that they get a little bit more bang for their buck on themselves.
Is that what we're seeing? You referenced Kevin Kelly, the 1,000 true fans, which has been updated by Lee Jin now to 100 true fans. If they're engaged super fans, to quote Brian, I don't think we're seeing this, frankly. I mean, I'm leading the conversation in that direction because I feel these big companies, we'll name them all, but like Disney, like we said, Starbucks, they're not actually building that yet. They're still just selling things.
Well, they're trying to, right? And I think that over time we will see the evolution of those people jumping into the platform in that capacity. But I don't know if we're there yet. And I don't imagine Disney coming up with a tokenomics coin that they're going to be able to control, under their own standards, I suppose.
Two thoughts on that. Number one, it would be very easy for Disney to have their own quote unquote Disney currency inside their ecosystem of parks. And number two, we know what you would think of that.
Yeah,
Disney bucks.
Yeah, my rebuttal to that is, though, they will not forfeit control on who can own the most of their supply.
They being Disney?
Correct. Like, they will not want to keep that component. They would want to keep that component close to the chest. They wouldn't want people to be able to trade and dictate what that value is on an open market.
So in the same vein here, story number 2 is the Lego Group. Lego, as in the toy from children's days, is teaming up with Epic Games to build a kid's place in the metaverse. So Lego and Epic Games, Epic is Fortnite for those who aren't familiar, building a long-term partnership to shape the future of the metaverse for families. They want to create a digital experience for kids of all ages. They are right now hiring, Lego is, staff for their metaverse. Number one, a portfolio manager, which is really a project manager to oversee, a marketing manager, Michelle, and a creative lead, which would be the brains of the outfit, I imagine. So Lego is owned by a company named Kirby, for those who don't know. They've made $1 billion investment in Epic Games, which is the owner of Fortnite. This all comes, I pulled this one off the Lego website, but it's in all the business news right now. What are our thoughts around Lego entering the metaverse? Who's going first here? Michelle.
This was your story, Michelle.
Well, as I said, when I sent the story to you guys, we've got 5 kids. We've had 4 boys obsessed with Lego for probably 25 years over my parenting life. And I just can't imagine, like they have always come up with the best of the best for stuff. And I cannot imagine that their metaverse, what they come up with and what their experience will be like, will be phenomenal. Because if they put Lego City into the metaverse, if they put Harry Potter into the metaverse, if they put the Fortnite, so the Simpsons and all of that into the metaverse, their Lego sets in the metaverse, like, how can that not be like a phenomenal thing? Like, it's already familiar for everybody. Everybody knows it already. Do you know what I mean? Like,
I'm agreeing with you until the part where Disney releases the Star Wars, their version of it. Two great tastes that take together don't always make pieces. You feel like it, but I agree with you. Great products.
Yeah. My first reaction is, well, as a parent myself, I won't need to step on the Legos, so that will be that
fantastic.
Don't count yourself out yet, pal.
And I do actually take quite a bit of resentment towards the fact that this is marketed towards kids, because I'm sure as hell playing in that metaverse myself as a huge Lego fan. I think, again, it's just an expansion on the technology, utilizing something we all know and love. I think, from their perspective, it's an operational revenue stream that they can rely on. That's, copy, paste, repeat. They don't need to make the blocks in different colors, instruction manuals, put them in boxes, ship them to stores. Like, all they have to do is just download a software and, maybe even purchase things on that metaverse. From a financial perspective, this is, this is cutting a lot of overhead expenses that they would be typical or, traditionally relying upon. They can offer different components of that based on engagement. Maybe you get specific characters, specific, traits, blocks, color patterns, whatever it may be. They'll have holiday promos, they'll have limited editions. And again, of course, this, to your point, Mark, it opens up the door to a lot of collaboration efforts where somebody like Disney can come in and say, hey, slap our logo on it. We'll sell it for $5.99 in the metaverse. Maybe a kid just has the credit card from mom and dad stored in the Oculus anyway, and Disney takes their cut. Everybody's happy.
So I want to talk about Disney. Please, Michelle.
But can you imagine, though, creating something in the metaverse that Lego now builds that set for you and sends it to you in real life?
See, now you're talking about an NFT utility. Nike did this with shoes. right? You can
Yeah.
actually, they'll do a generative art on sneakers, and they'll give you the option
Yeah.
whether you want to create you keep the digital version, or you're the only one on the planet that will have that specific pair of shoes if you decide to trade it in. That's an
So
NFC component that Lego can easily implement.
easily. And so the kid creates his character, his unique looking character in the metaverse, in his Lego world, and you can order it for him and it turns up at his house, your house, her house, the list is endless of like if you made a particular set within it, and then you could have that shipped to you, yes, I'll be playing as well.
So I want to categorize what the metaverse is in this regard. It is the App Store or the Amazon platform on which everyone else will be attracted to do their thing, whatever it may be. So if you think of the model of the Apple invents the App Store, and now you come there with your app and you sell it, and that's where you engage. It's a marketplace. Lego is actually going up against Disney right now, if you think about it, because the playground, if you will, in the virtual world where all the kids are going to come will be where all they raise their own children. And this has been Disney's model for how many years? 50 years. So I really think that this is an interesting dynamic. Disney will never partner with Lego in this, in my opinion. They are going to, in fact, compete with this. And if Lego's going with Fortnite and Kirby, has paired up with Epic Games, I think that Disney's on the hunt for who do they need to have in their metaverse that's going to bring the kids. This is exactly why they bought Star Wars. It's exactly why they bought Marvel. I think we've already seen the metaverse has been the playground of entertainment and media, like gaming and music. These types of things are what the metaverse is built for. So this would be really interesting to see Disney's response is where I'm going with this. Right now, so far, Disney has done a couple of NFTs around their music catalog. That's about it. So, and they've got the money to spend. Bob Iger gets the concept of it as well. He's back in charge there. I think Disney's the company to watch with this whole thing.
They also have their teeth sunk into ESPN, and the sports angle of this is another big component. And like the Oculus, for example, has specific applications where you can go in and you can actually watch a basketball game with the goggles sitting like courtside. They have like a camera that's set there, and so many people stream in and it looks like you're at the game.
That's fantastic.
That I think is more of a practical use case, especially if there's a subscription associated with that, whether it's ESPN Plus or Disney Plus, whatever bells and whistles will come with that. But Disney is also pumping out all these short videos through Pixar and all these other ones that they launch only on Disney Plus. There could be some sort of an interaction component within, not necessarily VR goggles, but even just a standard desktop, laptop, or phone that immerses the user into that experience.
Interesting. Yeah.
You get to Michelle, pick up garbage with Wally.
What was that, Mike? Sorry, I missed that.
You would have the opportunity to pick up garbage with Wally.
All right. Wall-E.
All right, moving to
go ahead, Michelle. Mike, the only thing I was going to say was that Disney didn't create a Mega Bloks or a whatever kind of thing for the Star Wars Lego. They went to Lego for that. So they do partner with them, even though, like we talk about what businesses have the same customers as you that are complementary to what you do, that aren't necessarily direct competition. So, I understand the metaverse is probably a different thing, and I agree. I think that Disney will have their own eventually, but I don't know that doesn't mean they won't do some JVs or some, partnering with Lego, because Lego already have the rights to the Star Wars stuff.
So for those
who in some capacity, not in
Mike,
all
your
capacity.
home state of Florida, there's a Legoland and there's Disney World, and they're probably half an hour apart. I've been to both of them. Probably you have too. And if you haven't, you will be soon, my friend. I don't know that Lego merch is sold. Actually, Lego merch is sold in Disney World, if I remember right. I don't know that Disney sells anything inside of the Legoland. We're talking about who owns the platform on which the stuff is sold.
But at Disneyland, you can buy Disney Lego. Yes.
Disney stores
so you can buy Star Wars and whatever. Now you can't necessarily buy Lego City in Disneyland, but yeah, and in Legoland you can buy all of it.
I don't think it's a two-way collaboration, right? I think that, like, you know, you're not going to find like Mickey Mouse dolls at Legoland.
No.
Right, but you will find Star Wars
not.
Lego sets for sure. 100. In fact, I'm willing to bet that they have their own end caps, and they have a carved out section for Disney related Lego projects, because I know that's how they do it in the Disney stores. But when you start talking about different avenues of revenue, right, this metaverse concept, I'm sure that there's carve outs in whatever licensing agreement that Lego has with Disney that they would have to revisit with respect to this type of application. And, you know, if Mitch is here, I'm sure he could pop in with a comment, because I'm sure he'd have.
For anyone catching this stream later on, Mitch Jackson, shout out, hat tip. Mitch and his son Garrett doing yeoman's work and helping people understand the metaverse and the practical applications in the business world. So take a look at that. I wanted to, good point mentioning that, Mike. I think that a lot of these, the metaverse is poorly understood right now. The general average person confuses the metaverse, Web3, like it's blockchains and NFTs, like people just, it blurs together. But the reality is these are all business tools and all of them are applicable in a, Mitch is still here. Mitch, happy to have you. If you want to jump in the stream, you're more than welcome. You're always invited, you know that. But I think that the delineation between how to use these tools, the fact that blockchain, the underpinning technology, is applicable across the board, that's great. But what do I do with it? If I'm a small business, like this isn't just about Disney and Lego. This is the average company can and should be doing efforts in the Web3 space to help drive business, to help build awareness, to help create marketing.
And if they aren't jumping in, they need to at least be looking at it.
Yeah, amen. All right, moving on to story number 3 here. 90% of online content could be generated by AI in 2025. This is not anything I need to tell people about. ChatGPT, for those who aren't aware, is taking the world by storm. Generative AI could transform how digital content is developed, says an AI thought leader on Yahoo Finance Live. I'll let you read the story. This comes out of Finance Yahoo. But this person is saying it might reach 90%, 90, of online content by 2025. Michelle, Mike, thoughts?
So just for people who are listening later, we will put the links to the stories that we talk about, so that there'll be the ability to go and have a look at the stories so that you can look at them later. I think I said to you guys earlier in the day, I Googled ChatGPT today, and it already has 94 million Google search results. Wow. So not bad for, you know, I mean, I don't know how many they would have had a month ago, but I can bet you it was less than half of that, or 2 months ago. Yeah, I don't know. I don't know about you, but if you're a regular Twitter user and you look at content and Web3 and they're sort of the people that you follow, honestly, every second post at the moment is, you know, I made $10 million with ChatGPT lying in the lounger next to my pool. You know, DM me and follow me and retweet for my free guide. And so it's kind of getting a bit insane. That will die down.
So I think it's the crypto bros, as you called them, have moved into the AI bros.
Yeah. God, it's just this week's flavor. That's the sauce. It's the, you know, like how McDonald's changed the freezy drink flavors every, you know, couple of weeks. That's what this is at the moment. It's ChatGPT.
We've entered the McRib of AI. Is that what you're saying?
Yeah.
Mike, what are your thoughts on this?
Yeah,
well, the first thought I have is that, like, you know, again, looking at it from more of the technical side, those search results are interesting, not surprising, but may tell a different story. And I'm almost curious that if any ChatGPT generated content has some sort of a backlink that hooks it into a search feature that Google is able to connect with, which would make Google very relevant in ChatGPT. I know we talked about how it could be the end of it, but that now sinks its tentacles even deeper into understanding what really people want, and therefore it's not going to replace people's app to make them waffles in the sense I can Google something and figure out where the nearest restaurant is. But I find it interesting that, there's so much emphasis on this technology at this stage. The evaluation of this keeps going up and up and up. There's still very much technical issues that they are facing. I mean, I just try to pop in just to kind of see what's happening a couple times a day. And, 2 out of 3 times it says, it's a little busy, come back later.
Yeah.
So on that note, Mike, I signed up yesterday for the wait list to pay when it starts to become a charged app, meaning I don't think in my life I've ever signed up for a wait list to pay for something ever.
You've never joined an NFT project, my friend.
Not to that degree. Yeah. So this is the hallmark of mania, right? This is we are.
Well,
go ahead.
And you don't even know how much it's going to cost.
Right. Brian adds here. People are caught up in the tools. They forget about the strategy. I completely agree with you, Brian. There's ChatGPT is a funny thing in that you get out of it what you put into it, right? This is I posted yesterday, Brian, I know you commented on this. The specialization of content creation is where we're headed with ChatGPT. Meaning, if I come out of the trading world, which I do, capital markets, and I understand data packet technology and networking, I am equipped to create effective, compelling content for blockchain because I know the space. But if I had to talk about pet cardiology or anything in the medical field, I am not equipped to make the same powerful content. I can with ChatGPT. I can pretend to be a surgeon for my dog. But the reality is I won't know the lingo, the angles, the real perspectives of the customers I'm trying to reach. So we're about to see the unleashing of content marketing specialization because of the AI tools. This is my belief.
So in the Food Fight Studios Sauce Plus Discord server, one of the animators challenged ChatGPT to a rap battle. And
my money's on the machine.
Brilliant. It's brilliant on the responses that were developed from this. And then he turned around and he animated it with different effects and everything. I mean, he literally sat there and had a conversation with this thing. He gave it specific guidelines and said, this is what you can run with. And then when things started to die down, he re-engaged it as sort of like an insult. And ChatGPT was able to respond accordingly to, that type of framework in the demands that he was setting forth. Right. This is kind of opening the opportunity for somebody to have a best friend in ChatGPT, or perhaps try to have conversations that are linked in various conversations like this, utilizing ChatGPT on the side as an effort to try to frame the way those responses are going to be crafted. There's still way too much to be left. There's still way too much to uncover on the way that the system is pulling information. And until we have a little bit more clarity on what perimeters it has on the sources it gathers that info,
Mike, we've talked about this. You think you're going to get that clarity? I mean, all due respect, I love you, but it's a private company.
I don't disagree, but again, we're talking about a modicum of trust that was disassembled through a platform like Facebook. Are we really going to step into another puddle like that?
The answer is yes, and here's why. And I'm not saying I agree with this. It's costing OpenAI $3 million a day to run this product. I mean, and then why would they pay $3 million a day? Answer that. You know the answer. They have access.
Go ahead. What's the answer?
They have access to the greatest information in the world. It is literally the world's data.
Correct. And what are they going to turn around and do with that?
That make money.
Exactly. So that is the modicum of trust that everybody fell off a cliff with Facebook. They were literally taking every single element that people were voluntarily putting into this search engine, because that's what Facebook is, and then they were turning around and monetizing that data, selling it to different companies. This is literally history repeating itself. And Web3 was developed to counteract that. Yeah. So I think, again, we're taking a step backwards in an effort to try to push the envelope forwards. And it's going to take a guy like me who means nothing, whose opinion only reaches as far as this podcast could go, to sit here and say, I don't trust it. I don't trust it. I think that there's a decentralized solution that we're building, that we keep working towards. That's a much more practical solution on the way people can interact with technology.
I don't think you're wrong, Mike, but I'm going to go back in time, maybe 50 years ago, A little more. The greatest tool ever invented technology-wise for the elevation of the masses of humanity to educate people was the television, right? It could global reach. And what did we use it for?
Totally disagree with you.
This is the modern version of taking the thing, whatever it is, that's got the attention of the world and selling stuff. Now, we can all agree that that's not the best use of the tool, but I think that's where humans have proven that that's always the first use.
Internet is by far way more of a global impact than television ever could have had, right? The information.
100%. I'm not comparing the two. I'm just saying as a medium at the time, relative.
Okay, and I'll give you a practical example. If I'm watching a game, I can pause it to run to the bathroom versus back in the day, I had to wait for a commercial, right? So,
yes.
That's the difference between what the internet brings versus what TV
I'm going to
brings.
go out on this broadcast live and remind anyone over a certain age of having to squeeze it out fast to get back because the show is starting.
Or somebody yelling at you from the other room saying, it's on, hurry up.
Right. It's on, hurry up. Dive over the couch as you come back in.
Yeah, Brian Piper jumping in. Cryptocurrency isn't the best use of blockchain. He's making the comparison to, he's right. How these tools get used isn't always the best for society, but they will get used to make money. Now, I know, I agree that that's not the way it should be, but having spent 30 years in the capitalist bastion of New York City's trading floors, this is how people are wired. If there's a way to make a buck off OpenAI and they've got literally the world's data, they'll find some way to monetize and sell stuff.
Exactly.
And you might want
that's going to draw people away from it. That's
Hold on a second.
Point.
What if, but based off of the chat GPTs that I've been doing, it hits me up with a product recommendation that is custom to me that would be unbelievable for my business.
Okay, there's good that comes from everything, but there's also, this is exactly the model of a YouTube. You can YouTube puppies for the next 3 months and all you'll see is videos of puppies and sales of puppies. I mean, like that's a real element within their algorithm. You could do the same thing with Facebook. But people were getting sick of it. They were getting bombarded with crap all the time, things that were not relevant to them. And all these companies had to learn to do was put in the search engines exactly what those components were, what people were searching for.
I agree with you.
And once you buy the puppy, why do you keep getting ads to say buy a puppy? Because you've just bought one.
And YouTube doesn't know that.
ChatGPT is the new version of Google in that regard. And whether or not it is used for however it's used and whatever, the fact that I had to sign up to pay, to wait, I'm on the wait list to pay, eventually they're going to find a way to monetize that demand.
Again,
so does that mean
NFT model, dude?
Can I ask a question about that? So does that mean it's not, no one can sign up for the free version anymore, or is there another version coming?
So GPT-4 is supposed to be released in March.
Yeah.
It is literally 10 times the amount of training data. And so this theoretically will be, 10 to 100 times better than what we've got. Now, this is the free version. It's the beta version. They admit freely that this thing doesn't work properly. Mike, to your point, you can't always get into it. Right now, it's free, Michelle. Yeah. There's no doubt. They have what's the valuation on these guys? 29 billion?
It's insane.
Microsoft kicking in another 10 billion potentially on top of the one they've already given it. Like, there's no doubt that they're there to make money some way. They've got the demand.
Of course. Yeah.
So, but Mike, I agree with everything you're saying.
How
that I
is
do.
The thing?
It's just not going to go that. This is like saying decentralized finance should take down the banks. I agree. But in real life,
it won't happen. Not in our lifetime.
Right. Anyway.
Well, it won't because the banks can still control it. They just don't know it yet. Just like people can control this AI format.
Hold on a second, Mike. That's the issue with switching this to Web3 and the folks of the show. Control is the word you use. That's decentralization versus centralization. Am I wrong?
You're not wrong. But what's stopping any government from buying a ton of Bitcoin and driving?
I guarantee you they already have. I mean, there are governments right now who
That's the way to centralize it, is it not?
Yes and no. You can't. No, the answer is no. With Bitcoin specifically, your example, you can't print it. Nobody controls.
You cannot print it. You're 100% correct, but you can own the majority of it, which therefore it's centrally owned by you. You control the market, whether it goes up or down based on your supply chain.
But you can't. I understand what you're saying. You can't defray your debt as a country with Bitcoin holdings. But I'm agreeing with you. Theoretically, you're right. It's something like Ethereum. I can print, right? I can make more of it. Something like Bitcoin, you can't. So the control factor, I don't want to get down the currency route of this, but I feel like there's a conversation around it. We should have decentralization and we should not have our data sold back to us. But in real life, that keeps happening.
And look, my argument, and I'm going to stay on this soapbox until somebody kicks me off. But this AI component is a guise, right? It's a false flag in the sense that it is just a mask that is put on something by somebody who's able to control the information that this algorithm is able to pull from. And until that curtain is revealed, I'm going to remain. I'm going to remain like skeptical of the information that's pumped out on that.
I will say this, there's something, people understand this with the concept of bias with AI, but how the thing is programmed and the training data it is used to learn from matters. And no one's asking that question. So coming from my background on Wall Street, trading algorithms, the data I gave this trading algorithm to train it, it was an AI-based machine that would buy and sell stocks. If I'm giving it only New York Stock Exchange data and the patterns of trading on that exchange floor are very different from the patterns of trading on any other exchange or electronic venue, it matters. But the end customer, your money manager doesn't know. They just hear the algo works, and so they're going to use it.
Yeah.
And here you open AI, very smart people, no argument. And they've got a lot of data they've trained it on, no argument. But is the data only, and I'm making this up, I'm exaggerating to make a point. Is the data only conservative-based politics? Is it only liberal-based politics? Is it only whatever that data is? That's the machinery and how it quote unquote thinks.
Correct. There's a parameter in the amount of information that it's able to source.
Right. So you
does it only like the color blue?
Yeah. Right. I mean, Mark, you brought it up about the whole revolutionary thing with your kid, right? He was searching for the Revolutionary War and it spit something out like, we don't talk about revolutions or, anything like that. Like that in and of itself is the red flag that I need to remain skeptical on where this information is being sourced from. I'm not sitting there thinking that people are looking at all of this stuff that's coming in on a day-to-day basis, but I also think that this is nothing more than a computer program, and a computer program has a variable that's inputted by somebody.
Before you send the January 6th committee after me, Mike, Mike is referencing my son had to debate in school the loyalists versus the patriots in the founding of the American colonists' rebellion against the king. And so American Revolution. But the fact that it was about revolution, this machine, which I threw it in there to see what it would do, warned, hey, we don't talk about revolution. So clearly there's guardrails on this thing. Maybe that's a good thing. All right, our last story. This is not actually a story, but more of a news item that, Michelle, I think it was you who brought this to our attention. There was a security hack of a person on Twitter, unfortunately, NFT God, who runs a community called 1% Better. The 1% Better community is basically creators and investors, and it's weekly tips on how to build a growth mindset, right? So that's just a subject person. They discussed in Twitter an extensive set of threads, how they were hacked, unfortunately, had a life-changing amount of currency taken from them in the form of NFTs, and we're not able to get it back. Now, it's a terrible story. We've seen this before. I know the reason we're bringing it up is because of the importance. And Mike, I know you have some insights to share with this, if you don't mind.
Yeah. So, I mean, since day one, with any new technology, there's always the high risk of security issues, right? I mean, and, let's talk about the whole website, explosion that happened when those first came about. Like, everybody was skeptical about putting their credit card in a website. Now you can't even remember how many have them stored in there. So the security element of this new technology, again, without the necessary regulations in place, is always going to be something that has to be focused on and kept very serious in your mindset on anything that you do, any links that you click, any way that you need to connect your wallet. You need to have hot and cold wallets. Having a ledger as a security feature is important so that any transaction needs to go through the ledger rather than actually just going through a digital wallet. There's no 1-800 help desk, right? Like, you're on your own, you're on an island. And what drives me nuts about this is that the whole answer to this thing, as important as it is, because you are talking about assets and money and, people's life savings in some cases, like, the answer to all this is do your own damn research. Like, I'm sorry, that's not enough. So we've actually taken steps in the NFT space. When things get stolen, we have the opportunity to come in, flag those NFTs as being stolen, and even replace them in some instances. And when I say replace, we're not replacing the actual token, because that is what is stolen. That is what is non-fungible. That is what you are unable to get back. But we are able to replicate what the token represented, the metadata associated with it, the artwork associated with it, reissue that in an open-ended contract. It's still part of the exact same collection. All of the attributes, all of the categories, all of the art, they all stay consistent with the actual collection. And as far as the guy who stole it or girl who stole it, it means nothing anymore, because the artwork is disappeared. The metadata is gone forever. All of these things now become irrelevant pieces, and therefore would discourage people from trying to attack that type of community.
Yeah, that's a good point. Michelle, thoughts?
I think that Mike should be submitting to NFT NYC in the security thing and talk about that, is what my thoughts are. Yeah, so NFT God, 94,000 followers on Twitter, does some really good content, is quite methodical in the things that he does. Recently started a newsletter. He calls it the 1% Club, or 1% Better. And yeah, it was a series of unfortunate events, I think, too. And also another thing for people to think about: when you get an alert or someone tells you that it looks like your ex has been hacked, don't assume that the hacking stops at that, because I think he then went out and, did a few things, picked his wife up from the train station, whatever, and came back and then noticed another thing. And then it wasn't until the second or the third or the fourth thing that he realized it was a full-on attack, and then started to take steps to do something about it. So I think that in this space, there are a lot of people who make their money by taking money from other people, not just, making and creating NFTs or, creating social tokens or whatever. What they're doing is they're actually, stealing from people as their income. So it's important that if you get to the point where something looks fishy, then investigate and keep going. Don't just think you've stopped at the one thing and you've solved the problem.
Just to clarify that a bit, Michelle, something Mike said, you, Michelle, claimed it was a series of unfortunate events. Mike would have termed it a series of unfortunate clicks. So I agree with you. It's never good, but there is no 1-800 help desk, Mike. You're right. I think that the thing people need to remember, most of the hacks that happen at the bridge, meaning when there's things being transferred in and out. When you're downloading software, it's not a bridge technically, but it's the same concept. It is when you are clicking on things to move stuff around or bring stuff in and out, whatever that means. That's when you need to be on your guard. It's almost like in a big city, don't take your wallet out in a crowd, right?
Well, I mean, there's all these various tricks that they've evolved to as well, right? I mean, we've all seen hidden things dropped in our wallets, right? Like if you interact with that and you post it for sale, there's code in there that can open a door into your actual wallet, right? So a lot of people don't know that. If you just leave it alone there, it's not going to bother you. It's not going to do anything to you. But signing a transaction, hey, replicating a project that you're familiar with is a very commonly used strategy, right? So, they'll use like Web3 dot XYZ instead of .com, and people will think it's us, and hey, click here, one time only, you have one free NFT, it's worth blah blah blah, and you'd be shocked on how many people actually jump on that, and the minute they do, it's game over. Like these people are relentless with what they take. I mean, I've been victim of it myself, just in the early stages of trying to understand where all this went, and that's when I started taking it a little bit more seriously, but more importantly, trying to research and understand what solutions are on the table, because to do your own damn research, that can't be the answer that everybody just sits there and accepts anymore. There has to be security systems in place, and these projects have to take responsibility in, trying to make sure that, people who are trying to act in a malicious manner are unable to monetize from those efforts.
For those of us who are fortunate enough to have been at the Joe Polizzi's Creator Economy Expo out in Arizona last year, Brian Fanzo of Web 365 NFT gave a very lengthy personal story, unfortunately, very similar to this one. It can happen to anyone, really. So the
Yeah.
fact is Web3 is going to have more problems before we get to the good stuff. I wish that weren't the case.
So two things are
And,
going to come up from that. Sorry. Two things are going to come up
no,
from
go
that.
on.
One, there's going to be a massive security company that's going to be developed from this. And two, there's going to be an insurance company that follows suit. We talked about the insurance side of things, but that's ultimately going to become a pretty significant business, which will force certain projects in order to be covered to take certain security precautions within the way they write those smart contracts.
Michelle?
No, I was going to say that there are a lot of smart people in this space that have had their wallets scraped, have lost currency. You know, like it's hard for those people who are, you know, newbies and don't really know, and, you know, cloaking devices on links in all sorts of web pages, and, you know, even downloading apps that you think is the right app, etc., happens at the moment. And so it is difficult, and it is it's a tricky time as well, because the market is also down. I think that, you know, where I'm seeing probably a few more than we did even at the height of the market, you know, 18 months, 1 year ago, because people aren't making their money on buying Dogecoin and letting it go up for $1 in, you know, 2 days.
Give
So
Elon
they've
some
got to
time.
find other ways. Yeah, they've got to
So-
find other ways to, you know, make their money.
So I'm going to highlight that we're past the hour, and there are a lot of smart people in Web3. Michelle, I agree with you. And balancing that out of the three of us here. So what I'm going to do is remind people that this is a business discussion, guys. As a disclaimer, informational purposes only. The do your own research bit applies here. We are not giving investment advice, nor is any of this intended as anything other than a conversation around business use cases, possibilities for yourself. Right? All opinions here are just our own. We've got three folks that have been in the space and trying to share some insights. So that's more of a warning / disclosure. I do think that the Web3 developments are going to accelerate this year with what we're seeing. I know the AI is the hot new thing, but blockchain doesn't go away. And the fact of the matter is, it is a usable tool, specifically in marketing, but also in the operational end of how businesses can be run. So we're going to see, Mike, your point about a new security company I 100% agree. There's an entire industry that hasn't yet been spawned because this technology isn't yet released. It's available. And there's a couple of crazy Star Trek fans doing their cool thing with their blockchains. But real companies are still just dabbling a little bit. And I think that this will be the year, not because I want it to be, but because recession is going to force companies to start looking at new ways to manage their business. So this will be a year of Web3 evolution. And I really think we'll start to see a lot of activity, both on the Silicon Valley startup front still. And I think a lot of activity with the bigger firms getting more into the community orientation. Closing
So
thoughts.
do you think that a Norton or a McAfee, those sorts of, do they step up to this space?
So this is the question of how a Web 2 company becomes a Web 3 company. Some of them may make it, but the reality is most transitions of evolutionary nature like this, they don't scale. It wasn't the horse company that became the car company, or the railroads that became the truckers, right? It's always going to be, we think we've got this thing and we're going to protect our turf, which opens the door for a company. It's the reason that Netflix puts Blockbuster out of
Sure,
business.
it's Kodak.
Right.
It's
Yeah,
Kodak
but
all over again.
Norton has the sense of security that people would feel comfortable with too, right? So there's a branding play in that as well for either a licensing or even an acquisition concept. Somebody comes up with that security. It wouldn't put it past me if somebody like Norton or McAfee actually puts up the money to kind of absorb that and integrate that into their existing security protocols. Because think about it, they can actually sell packages that incorporate that too.
Here's the comp.
I mean, they don't have to become a Web3 company. They just have to provide a service for Web3.
Which is exactly what we're talking about. I'll use the comparison of when Disney owns the animated feature-length film world, and Pixar has a better mousetrap to make the films quicker, and they're better films. And what does Disney have to do?
They buy them.
Right. That's what I think happened. I think you're both right. We'll see what happens. But I do believe the Web 2 to Web 3 is going to be the conversation be in the closed door boardrooms, oak paneled. We won't hear about it. How do we get ourselves into the Web3 space? And again, not for a quick buck, which is all we've seen so far, but this is about evolving your company, especially if you're a big outfit, because that's where the money is now.
I think there are a lot of boardrooms and a lot of people in a lot of places right now who are trying to work that out. And what quite a few of the older, more established companies will find is that people that they've got in their current staff will have no idea how to help them get there.
Mike, closing thoughts?
Don't trust the World Economic Forum and buy Legos.
Right. I won't be able to top that. I want to thank everyone for joining us. Mitch, Brian, all the folks that have been supportive all throughout the time. We really appreciate it. We're grateful. We will be doing this show on LinkedIn Live and Twitter Spaces, actually, as of next week. And so feel free to join. We are open to Q&As with these sessions as well. So if folks want real life use cases, how can they do it for themselves? Those types of things. We're totally cool with that. Thank you, Brian, for joining us. Appreciate that in the chat. We will be back
same time. So 4 p.m. Wednesdays.
Yeah, 4 p.m. Wednesdays, Eastern time.
Is that right? Yes.
That's right. All right, everyone. Best out there. We'll see you guys soon. Good luck in the Web3 space and all the best. Cheers.
See you later. Bye.